Alright, so we have Ronnie Lawrence versus Trevin Jones. Trevin Jones, he's a southpaw. He likes the outside low kick, a lot of power in his hands, as we've seen in his first two UFC fights. Nice counter three. I think his left hook, his right hook, because he's a southpaw, but yeah, his right hook's got a lot of power behind it. He'll mix up the takedowns as well. Ronnie Lawrence probably the more prolific wrestler. We'll get into that in a sec, but he'll mix in takedowns as well. He'll throw an overhand right to set up his takedowns on the fence. Likes to grab a kick and work for a takedown from there. But yeah, as I said, Ronnie Lawrence probably the more prolific wrestler here. Ronnie Lawrence, he has a bit of stand-up too. He's frequently switching his stance, trying to get entries for his takedowns, constant movement, very light in his feet. Lots of spinning kicks. Lots of spinning kicks at distance, and he does throw those spinning kicks quite recklessly at times. He spins himself into boxing range a lot. It's just very dangerous against Trevin Jones, who's very lethal in the pocket. Like he's got a lot of power in his hands. And Ronnie Lawrence, he has his hands low, he has his chin in the air at all times. So it's just quite dangerous, and he throws a lot of kicks, a lot of naked kicks in boxing range. So it's not really advisable, but that's just how he strikes. So I can't see him changing, anything for this fight, especially when it's on short notice. But yeah, I think he should probably go for the wrestling route here. But he's got very good takedowns. He's got very good timing on the reactive double, nice blast double. If he gets the body lock position, he's very strong there. Suplexes, outside leg trips, just constant mat returns. If he's, if you're just allowing him to maintain that wrestling ride position. And Trevin Jones, he gives his back up quite a bit in the UFC. Before the UFC actually. A lot of scrambles, he would just give his back up to get back to his feet, and I think that opens up the back body lock position for Ronnie Lawrence. Ronnie Lawrence doesn't have the best top control. I mean, if you're averaging 11 takedowns per 15 minutes, you're not keeping them down there very long, are you? He's very aggressive on top, tries to advance position a little bit too hastily, and then in turn, the opponent's able to get back to their feet, and he's back in the stand-up where he has obvious flaws. How these guys win fights, so for Trevin Jones, Jesus Christ, I'm going to call him Trevin Giles like a billion times this video. He has significant power in his right hand, and I'm not even mentioning his power hand, which is, his rear hand. Like he's got a very nice right hook. So yeah, I'm not even talking about his left straights and his left hooks, but he's got power on both hands, but particularly in his right hand and his right hook. And he's hard to put away. He's been finished once in 20 fights. He went through hell in that Timur Valiev fight in the first round, and he came back and won that. But yeah, he got absolutely beaten up in the first round. For Ronnie Lawrence, it's the exhausting pace that he brings, and he's got incredible cardio. How these guys lose fights, so for Ronnie Lawrence, it's the striking tendencies, and for Trevin Jones, he's liable to be out-volumed. He's quite low volume on the feet. Path to victory for Trevin Jones, so forward pressure, keep him on his heels, try and keep him near the fence, try and, pin him against the fence if you can. Lead leg outside low kicks, if you go for the inside low kick versus an orthodox fighter, and you're a southpaw, it just leaves you way too open for his double legs, and he's going to be looking for those constantly. So I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably just use the lead leg to kick the outside calf, which is, more effective anyway, honestly. When he's on his bike, when he's like backing up, and then stops on a dime, you got to be ready to defend that blast double. Like, don't rush in. When he creates that space by backing up, don't rush in, and then, because he's going to be looking for that blast double. He's trying to walk you onto it. So when he just stops on a dime, just be ready to defend that double leg. Also look to tag him as he's circling the fence. Make sure you aren't giving him an angle for his reactive double. It's hard to explain without, visual props, but, the angle, you kind of have to be angled closer to the fence than normal. But yeah. So don't accept bottom position if you do get taken down, and grab a kick, grab one of his kicks and work a takedown of your own. For Lawrence, don't stand for too long, obviously get the wrestling going. Single into a body lock. The single leg will be there with the southpaw stance. Look to get that body lock position and just, you know, kind of bully from there, you know, body lock bully. Mat returns, cost of mat returns, don't let it go. Alright, so how I see the fight playing out. Should be a fun fight. I'm expecting a lot of scrambles in this one. You know, Lawrence's wrestling looks really good, and Trevin Jones can wrestle as well, for sure. On the feet, I've got Jones. If Lawrence decides randomly to not shoot any takedowns, but I'm not expecting that. But on the feet, Lawrence is quite careless. You know, every time he throws something, he's going to leave himself open and very vulnerable in front of Jones. And Jones is just super powerful. In regards to the grappling, Ronnie's go-to takedown is the double leg in the orthodox stance, versing another orthodox, which isn't the most available takedown against southpaws because it's hard to get deep penetration on their hips because of the angle of their hips, but also their lead legs in the way, you know. But there are ways around it. You can switch stance when you're throwing your right hand, or you can just attack the single leg. You know, I don't really think it's going to stop Lawrence from you know, getting Trevin Jones down. The single legs are there. He can chain his techniques together after the single and then get that body lock position, because I think Jones is going to turn his back and then give Ronnie Lawrence that body lock, that back body lock every time, and he's going to turn that into a wrestling ride, and then it's just mat return city from there, I think. But you know, Lawrence, he hasn't really faced anyone decent. He's obviously quite green in his career. He lost to Steve Garcia a few years ago, which isn't a great look. You know, Steve Garcia isn't very good. I wish I could watch how that fight played out, but you know, Bellator, I can't seem to find that fight, so thank you for that, Bellator. But anyway, it sounds like Steve won quite easily. Lawrence only had 3 fights under his belt at the time, but I was just interested to see how Garcia dealt with the wrestling and the pace of Ronnie Lawrence, because in general it's really hard to pick or bet against these guys who just have incredible cardio and just don't stop with their wrestling pressure. I'm talking guys like Merab Dvalishvili, you know, Movsar Evloev, Gregor Gillespie, Khabib, or, you know, just guys who can just constantly attack takedowns and not get tired. So even if Jones is able to stuff all the takedowns that, you know, Lawrence is shooting, he's just been rendered defensive for the whole fight. And we've, you know, seen that lately when people are shooting takedowns, but then they get in that stalling position. The judges don't hate it, to say the least. They score it quite highly, honestly. Like, it decides rounds. And a good example was the TJ vs Sandhagen fight. You know, Corey was stuffing a lot of takedowns. He wasn't scoring any points for it. TJ was just kind of holding on to the back body lock, throwing a few knees, a few Charlie horses, and he was winning rounds with that. So, you know, it is what it is, but that's just the way judging has been lately. So it's just something to note. And, you know, these guys, they always compel the same kind of fight, and you pretty much just have to accept it, or you have to fight the perfect fight if you want to beat these guys. But if there's, you know, if we've learned anything from betting Trevin Jones fights, it's that you don't want to fade him because he's so dangerous, and he's dangerous, and he's always live. So yeah, let's have a look at the betting lines. Alright, so if you guys could like the video, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for that. Alright, so the prediction is Ronnie Lawrence by decision. Yeah, I think he grinds on Jones. I think it's going to be competitive, but Ronnie Lawrence is just kind of controlling the positions and being more offensive as a whole in the fight. But yeah, I think it's a tough fight. You know, it's really hard to pick against these guys. I'm surprised the money's coming in on Jones, honestly. You know, generally people with this style, they get steamed pretty hard. You know, Ronnie Lawrence's style. But yeah, so I'm probably happy to play Ronnie Lawrence at like $1.75 or whatever that is in the money line. Probably like minus 135 or minus 140 or whatever that is. I was pretty happy to play Jones at $2.80 or plus 180. I thought the line was going there, but it doesn't seem to be going that way. Ronnie Lawrence decision could be interesting. Maybe if that's like $3.60 or plus 260, I'll probably hit that. But yeah, so, you know, this is a good fight.